This podcast is brought to you by Mapper Forward's new Patreon community, the Global Coffee Think Tank. Check the show notes or head to patreon.com/mapperforward to find out how you can become a member today. Welcome back to the Daily Coffee Pro by Mapper Forward, friends. I'm your host, Lee Safar, and we are joined for our second episode in our 5-part series with Anna Abatzoglou. Anna, welcome back to the podcast. We are exploring the kind of cracking the code between the consumer and specialty coffee. And in the last episode, we explored what the definition of specialty coffee is. And I think we arrived at the point that there's no actual definition for specialty coffee. It's on a sliding scale based on who you are and what you occupy. The one part we didn't talk about was what is specialty coffee from the consumer's perspective. So how do you think the consumers of specialty coffee define specialty coffee?
I think consumers who define specialty coffee is they're looking for something delicious, and anyone that can appreciate something a little bit more than, like, people drink coffee like, I just drink it to have that caffeine, it's like a function, like I just drink it so I can wake up in the morning. And then there's people who, like, I drink it because it gives me that warm hug, or it gives me that adventure, or that like I'm like having it like a real, like a breakfast experience. And and I think that's a way to define it. Like, it's something that when you appreciate like something good in life, when you have that when you taste something good, it makes you enjoy your life more. And I think that helps to define it. But it's also one of those things you can't put a concrete definition on it.
What do you think when a consumer is looking, like, let's say somebody who really appreciates drinking a delicious cup of coffee? I'll give you an example. My friend and I, Angelo, is Australian, and Angelo and I were both happened to live in San Diego at the same time. And I got really excited because I thought, oh, awesome, he's Australian, so for sure he likes to go out and drink specialty coffee. That was my bad. Because I said to Angelo, let's go and have a coffee. And he said, no, we're not going to drink coffee together. And I said, why? And he said, because I don't like your kind of coffee. It tastes sour and it just doesn't taste good at all. I don't like specialty coffee. I said, take me to where you drink coffee. And this guy was like really he's Italian. He really enjoys coffee. It's a big part of his day. He took me to what I think we would consider a second wave kind of really super dark roasts. The milk was a little bit too bubbly. And he had this coffee, and the joy on his face was beautiful. And I ordered a coffee as well, and it was not great to what my palate is. And he said something really interesting to me. He said, this is specialty coffee to me.
Interesting.
That sent me on like a rabbit hole that has gone on for about 4 years now since then, of like, isn't it interesting that we have a definition as the industry of what specialty coffee is, but the consumer is going to look at just that simple word, specialty, and attach their own definition to what that means. So if he's drinking illy coffee, to him that's a specialty experience because it makes him feel amazing and it's delicious to him. So now I'm really discombobulated about what's the connection between our industry and consumers of what specialty coffee should be. Should we be basing it on flavor? Should we be basing it on a score? Should we be basing it on an experience? And who defines all the subjective elements in that?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like with specialty coffee, there's a lot of like circular movement within that stays in specialty coffee. Like
Yeah.
people keep like specialty coffee, just talk to specialty coffee people about flavors, about how to taste, about how to brew. And there are lots of energy spent within the circle, but like not as much energy spent within like, and then there's the rest of the consumers who, yeah, they're specialty coffee.
Hmm.
They enjoy it in maybe like a different, maybe it's a different interpretation than the people who work in specialty coffee. And um, but there's like not like a like there's not a like the Venn diagram
Hmm.
of like that overlap with like the energy spent is like there's like a very small overlap. So like
Yeah.
it's almost like if we spent more time with like spreading that, I think because that's like part of where it takes time to maybe have more of a common definition, because the more people that try and that learn, and it's not immediately, your friend probably isn't gonna like he already tried, he's like he tried something and he's like it's sour, um but that was just one time. Maybe maybe they're finding the
Repeated
right,
exposure.
maybe just he needed like some like a super like fruity natural coffee, and then he'd be like, oh yeah, that's it. But it takes more time and energy, and it's not something like that's gonna be immediate. So maybe if we spent more energy like crossing over to that
Yeah.
side, or how to like that's the part, that's the cracking the code part, that
Right.
it like is that we're maybe that's that we're missing, to have that more of that togetherness and how we look at specialty coffee. um and it's almost like they're like maybe part of the industry is like, oh, we could keep it separate, like that's like this is ours, this is specialty coffee here, and then but that's what you think special coffee is, but it's not. Like we're
Yeah.
keeping it separate, but there could be more overlap for sure. And that's kind of like I worked for Pepsi for a little bit, and like
Hmm.
a big thing was like cans in hands, like get more people to try it, and then more people are gonna like it, and more people are um gonna have maybe that aha moment, not like maybe not just with Pepsi, but like the different Pepsi
Yeah.
products. And it's just a basic, something basic. But I'm like, yeah, that's the more people, like for Cup of Excellence, the more people that try Cup of Excellence coffee, the better, because they understand it, and they're like, oh, this is like, maybe they'll have that special moment, and maybe they'll realize this is maybe why it's a little bit more expensive, or this is a new way to taste coffee, and maybe they're going to try it in a different way, than they've tried normal coffee, than they've tried their everyday coffee.
Do you think that Starbucks does a good job of that? Well, that's unfair to ask you that question, but let me phrase it in a different way. Is Starbucks attempting that crossover that I think you're talking about? It sounds like that's kind of on the way to what you're thinking.
Yeah, yeah. I think they, if anyone has done it, they've like created more of like critical mass effect with specialty. I mean, what were people drinking? What happened before we had Starbucks?
Yeah.
Like gas station coffee? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
And I even see convenience stores and gas stations like stepping up their coffee game.
Oh,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, because it's like, oh no, we need to have better coffee, and that, yeah, maybe that's another perspective too. Like sometimes, especially coffee, we just think like cream of the crop, like what's happening at the very top, but like there's different. Not to say like can be gas stations are like the low bottom, at the bottom, but like they are. Yeah, I've seen it here in the Portland area in Southwest Washington. The push for like more gourmet coffee and at convenience stores, because maybe there isn't the Starbucks everywhere, but they do want to provide something a little bit nicer. Um,
When they use that
that's a
term,
little bit off topic.
no, no, that's it. It leads me to that word gourmet. When they use the word gourmet coffee, is it in the ballpark of specialty coffee, or are they saying we want lattes instead of just batch brew coffee?
It's yeah, it's definitely batch brewed coffee. And yeah,
They want
the
fancy batch
gourmet,
brew.
yeah, the gourmet word is like kind of a vintage, like I'm I'm giving paying homage maybe to like the origins of Cup of Excellence, because it started
Uh-huh.
from something called the Gourmet Project, which
Did
yeah,
it
like
really?
yeah, like the word gourmet too is like it's yeah, it's kind of like not, you don't hear it too often. And maybe when people are talking about specialty coffee, they don't talk about gourmet coffee.
Yeah.
But
But you definitely hear it in the US. Like I've heard it in LA, I've heard it in San Diego, and I've heard it in New York, where people are like, "Oh, we don't have gourmet coffee." Or when customers go in and they're like, "What kind of coffee do you serve? Is it gourmet or is it just regular coffee?" And I'm like, "That's really fascinating. Do they mean specialty, uh,
yeah,
or do they mean something completely different?" And how are they, it goes along that lines of like, how are you defining that kind of thing?
yeah, I think that's like to your point there. Like I think a lot of people don't even know that you can like the the word specialty coffee. They might not even
Yeah.
know like that's a thing. Like I think I think a lot, some of my friends even maybe they enjoy they enjoy craft beer, or they enjoy, you know, really nice wine, but
Mm-hmm.
they enjoy nice coffee, but they probably wouldn't say like, oh, that's specialty coffee. They just maybe think of it as
It's
like really
fancy
good
coffee.
coffee, maybe another word for yeah, gourmet coffee. But yeah, I think that's also part of like we like again we're like in this like circle, just
Yep.
specialty coffee, but the real but that's like where we need to connect more with people who drink coffee, and hey, this is specialty coffee, not for the purpose of just not for the purpose of using that word, but again for the purpose of maybe sharing more of a um I don't know, more maybe like to share to share more to crack more of that code,
Yep.
um of that specialty coffee connection.
Yeah. The Then in the next episode, we're going to talk about something that I found quite elusive, and that is uh, after having defined specialty and having defined, like having a conversation about how the customer views specialty coffee. The one thing that I think is a code that we haven't been able to crack as an industry is what information the consumer actually wants about specialty coffee.
Mm,
And that is
yeah.
a part of the code that I think, boy, oh boy, if we could figure out how to understand what information they want and what they don't want, we would easily give it to them. But
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people have tried over the years to figure that out, and we haven't quite landed there yet. So let's explore that in the next episode.
Looking forward to it.
Perfect. Peace, love, and peanut butter, everybody. Have an amazing rest of your day. Thanks, friends. If you enjoyed this video, here's what you should check out next. Consider supporting Map It Forward on Patreon, and be sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell before you leave.